You're listening to a New York Islanders episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the team's latest goings-on as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, Islanders fans! Welcome to my 2020 New York Islanders offseason preview here on the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I'm doing this a lot later than I thought I would. And I'm not saying that because of the 4-month pause. I don't think anyone really expected this team to be one of the 4 best teams in the NHL this year. I mean, you can make the argument that they're the 3rd best team. I'd love to see how they do in a series against the Golden Knights. I mean, make no mistake about it. This team had a fantastic season. Is it upsetting that they lost? Of course. I don't care if you were projected to be the worst team in the NHL. Once you get in the playoffs, you want them to win the whole thing. That's called being a fan. That's very normal. So while it's okay to be upset that they lost yesterday, don't lose sight of how incredible this season really was. And I'll go through it now very briefly. It's very easy to forget this because it happened almost a year ago. But this team went on a 17-game point streak. They were playing like a team that could win the Stanley Cup. They had a 10-game winning streak at one point. Then they traveled to Anaheim to face the Ducks. And that's where the point streak ended. But you know what? They were playing like a team that could win the Stanley Cup. But then the season went south. And it really started with the West Coast trip that they went on in the middle of February. On that road trip, where they faced the Predators, then the Golden Knights, then the Coyotes, and then the Avalanche, they only scored 2 goals. That's it. They were collapsing right before our eyes. It was very apparent that Lou Lamoriello would need to make a couple trades. He needed to add a defenseman, and he needed to add some goal scoring. And it's kind of funny. The Andy Green and J.G. Pageau trades didn't really work in the regular season. Yes, Pageau instantly became a fan favorite for what he did against the Rangers. I was there. I loved it. I bought his t-shirt. Alright, he signed an extension. I'm really happy that he's here long term. But the Islanders didn't win a game with him in the lineup. He was in the lineup for 7 games. The Islanders had no wins to show for it. In fact, in their last 13 games of the regular season, they only had 2 wins. At the time of the pause, they were out of the playoffs. it was an incredible collapse. But you know what? No team, with the exception of the Dallas Stars, and maybe even not the Stars, because the Stars were in the playoffs at the time of the pause. They just weren't playing well. You know what? I'm going to put the Islanders ahead of the Stars. No team in all of sports benefited more from the coronavirus than the Islanders. I don't know what exactly happened in the 4 months that they weren't playing hockey, but once they reported back for lack of a better word, mini-camp, something clicked. They went to Toronto for the bubble, and they played great. From the word go, they destroyed the Panthers, and they destroyed the Capitals. I didn't have much doubt that they could beat the Panthers. The Capitals, I don't remember who I picked in that series. I really don't. But I really thought the Flyers could give them some trouble. I remember picking the Flyers in 7. And the Islanders were up 3-1. They lost games 5 and 6. Flyers had all the momentum. It looked like I was going to be right. But this incredibly resilient Islander team played one of the best games they've played all year. They shut out the Flyers. They only allowed 16 shots. Thomas Greiss gets the shutout. It was a great 4-0 win. And I picked the Islanders in 6. I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought they could beat the Lightning. Obviously, I was wrong. It became pretty apparent pretty early on that the Lightning were just the better team. Game 1 was one of the worst hockey games you'll ever see in your life. Game 2, they lose in the waning seconds. Game 3, they win because of a stupid turnover that happened in the Islanders' offensive zone. Game 4, Lightning one-handedly. Game 5, Kevin Shattenkirk forgot how to shoot. Game 6, I thought they played well, but again, the Lightning were just better. They were the better team. Does it stink to lose? Yes. But there's not too much shame in losing to a better team. And there's definitely no shame in losing when you weren't even picked to make the playoffs in the first place. I said on today's episode of the Jacob Valk Show that Lou Lamoriello needs to keep his foot on the gas. This team has proven that they can contend for a Stanley Cup. I don't want another offseason where Lamoriello just sits on his hands and doesn't improve the team much. Look, I can't argue with results. What Lamoriello did worked. But I gotta tell ya, I attribute more of the Islanders' success to Trotz than I do Lamoriello. But you know what? Lamoriello can shut me up if he's able to get out of a couple big contracts. One of them he's responsible for, the other one he isn't. Thomas Hickey, who Lamoriello re-signed, and Andrew Ladd. Great Garth Snow move. I understand that it's not going to be easy. I really don't care what the Islanders have to do to get these contracts off their books. If they have to do some crazy NBA stuff where they attach picks and or young players to get the contracts off the books, they need to do it. According to Puckpedia.com, the Islanders only have just under $9.2 million in cap space. Now that's all well and good, but they have some big players due for extensions. Ryan Pulock, Devon Taves, and Matthew Barzal. $9 million isn't enough to re-sign all those guys. I understand that there are some Islanders fans that would let Taves walk and would replace him with Noah Dobson. I wouldn't go that far, even though Taves and Mayfield, for whatever it's worth, did not play well against the Lightning. They still had really good regular seasons. You know, it's hard for me to get rid of someone based off of one playoff series when they played well in the other series. I mean, there were some Islanders fans that got upset that Mayfield's stick broke. And that led to a breakaway that enabled the Flyers to win one of their games. That's not Mayfield's fault. That could have happened to anyone. Taves had the second most points out of any Islander defenseman this year with 28. And Mayfield provided a great physical presence on their blue line. He had the second most penalty minutes out of any Islander. First was Ross Johnston. I understand the logic behind trading Mayfield and or Taves, but I don't see it happening. So it is absolutely imperative that Lamoriello finds a way to get out from those two contracts. Hickey's making $2.5 million for the next 2 seasons. Ladd's making $5.5 million for the next 3 seasons. That's $8 million that Lamoriello can save if he figures out a way to get their contracts off the books. I understand it's not easy. And if he can't do it, I'll understand. But having said that, this guy is the hockey genius, right? One of the best minds in all of hockey. Call me crazy for thinking that he could find a way to coerce a team into taking on these contracts. If he can't, okay. But I don't think it's impossible if Lamoriello's really the hockey genius that everyone says he still is. At one point, he may have been. In fact, he definitely was. But I don't think I'd go that far with what he's done with the Islanders. Again, this is more Trotz than Lamoriello. So let's say that Lamoriello gets those 2 contracts off the books. That would give the Islanders just over $17 million in cap space to re-sign Barzal, Pulock, and Taves. That's plenty of room. I have no problem with them letting Brassard walk. It was a good try for 1 year, but I don't think the Islanders need to bring him back. If they do, okay. If they don't, okay. Tom Kuhnhackl is useless. Andy Green, there's really no room for. And Thomas Greiss, the Islanders have Ilya Sorokin. By the way, the Islanders spend all this time working on bringing Sorokin over, and Semyon Varlamov plays the best hockey he's ever played in his life. Imagine how Varlamov feels. Everyone's talking about Sorokin. What about me? What about what I did? Now he's going to be in a 1A, 1B situation. It's interesting how things work like that. It's possible that the Islanders can bring Matt Martin back. But I didn't think Martin had a good series against the Lightning. And I think he's going to want a big contract. He's coming off a 4-year, $10 million deal. That's $2.5 million a year. With the $17 million that the Islanders have in cap space, after re-signing Barzal, Pulock, and Taves, how much are the Islanders going to have left? Bear in mind, they still have a glaring hole at third line left wing. I mean, let's think about it. What type of contracts are Barzal, Pulock, and Taves going to get? They're all RFAs, for whatever it's worth. Barzal, is it crazy to say he could get a $5 to $7 million deal? I don't think that's crazy. I really, really don't. Pulock's probably going to get in the $4 million range. Taves will probably get in the maybe $3 million range. That's $12 million right there. So now the cap space decreases to $5 million. Can you bring Martin back with $5 million cap space? Yes. But you also want some room to fill that hole at third line left wing. I just don't think it's in the cards for the Islanders to keep Martin. If they can, fantastic. If they can't, I understand. Now you may be wondering what I have in mind for third line left wing. Because it was a deep dark hole for the Islanders this year. It should have been Derek Brassard, but he failed there. The Islanders really need to bolster the power play. Their power play was anemic. They were tied with the Predators for having the 7th worst power play percentage in the league. There is someone out there in free agency who has a history of being successful on the power play. Someone who Lou Lamoriello has a history with. And someone who's played left wing for a long time. You ready for this? I think the Islanders should go after Ilya Kovalchuk. That's right. Is Kovalchuk the 40 or 50 goal scorer that he was in Atlanta anymore? No, of course not. In fact, you're not going to get 30 goals from him. You'll be lucky to get 20. I get that. But last year, he bounced around 3 teams. The Kings, Canadiens, and Capitals. He had 26 points in 46 games. 5 of those points came on the power play. Look, I understand that it's not the Kovalchuk of old. Ilya Kovalchuk once led the NHL in power play goals in a season with 27. We're not going to get that. Assuming he plays the whole season, we're looking at a guy who can get, let's say, 15 goals and 40 points. And can really help out on the power play. I think it makes perfect sense. Also, the Islanders aren't going to have the cap space to go after a guy like Taylor Hall or Mike Hoffman or Evgeny Dadonov, someone like that. They have to go bargain hunting. Kovalchuk isn't going to get a crazy contract like Lamoriello gave him in Jersey. And he may want to join the Islanders for another reason. He's never won a Stanley Cup. He's had a great career here a great career in the KHL. It's very possible that he could go into the Hockey Hall of Fame, but no Stanley Cups. That hurts him. If he goes to the Islanders, he can win one. Kovalchuk this year was on a $700,000 contract. Let's double it. In fact, let's more than double it. Let's say $1.5 million for 1 year. Go all in to win a Stanley Cup this year. That's how you sell him on it. He has a relationship with Lamoriello. We're going to put you on third line left wing. You're going to be a big part of our power play. And this is the best chance you're going to have to win a Stanley Cup. I think he would do it. Just to quickly recap the roster for opening day next year, whenever it is. The first line will be Anders Lee, Matthew Barzal, and Jordan Eberle. The second line will be the best playoff line that the Islanders had, Anthony Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, and Josh Bailey. It was great to see him have a great playoffs. I remember wanting him gone at one point. My God, has he turned his career around. It's really great to see. Third line, Ilya Kovalchuk, J.G. Pageau, and Leo Komarov. You have scoring, you have some physical play. I think it makes perfect sense. And fourth line, you ready for this? Kiefer Bellows, Casey Cizikas, and Cal Clutterbuck. I understand there are some Islanders fans that are hesitant to give Bellows a shot because he made some bad mistakes when he first got an opportunity. But so did Noah Dobson. And there are a bunch of Islanders fans that are willing to give him a big role this year. Why isn't Bellows getting that same courtesy? Bellows is fast. He can score. He'll give the fourth line something that it doesn't have. A scoring threat. You put Bellows with Casey Cizikas and Cal Clutterbuck? I think that can work. They're scoring up and down the lineup. That's what the Islanders need. We know they're great defensively. They need to add more offense. I think Kovalchuk and Bellows and Pageau for a full year can do that. The defensemen, not much changes. Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock, Devon Taves and Scott Mayfield, and Johnny Boychuk and Nick Leddy. If you want to trade a guy like Boychuk or Leddy so Dobson can get a meaningful role, I don't mind it, but I don't love it either. I like Boychuk and Leddy more than I like Dobson. I know I'm in the minority there, but it's the truth. And the goalies will be a 1A, 1B setup of Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin. I think Sorokin's going to play something like 30 to 40 games. And I'll be very interested to see how he plays. I've heard a lot about this kid. Islanders fans have been hyping him up for a while. It seemed like we were never going to see him. Lamoriello brought him over. Let's see how he does. New York Jets recap on Sunday. New York Yankees show on Monday night. Regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show every weekday afternoon. I forgot to mention the Jets recap in the outro of today's episode of the Jacob Valk Show. But you are going to get it after the Niners game. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that the motto of the team I played for was win or else. I didn't know what the else meant and I never wanted to learn.